flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to start off with an environmental presentation by the famous Tony Piazza, who has some great projects going on here in Sagaponic and all over the East End. Tony, you want to come up and
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
oh, no, it's really a pleasure to have you here, and I'm hoping people will pick this up on the internet and get an education.
Yeah, we have to spread the good word because, as we all know, it's getting a little critical.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about the use of native plants in the
Tony,
landscape.
can you just introduce yourself again for the record?
Yes.
Thank you.
My name is Tony Piazza. I'm the founder of Piazza Horticultural Group, which is a design build landscape firm in Southampton, New York. And most of our work over the years has sort of transitioned to environmental, nature-based landscape design and maintenance practices. So today I thought I would talk a little bit about why to use native plants in our landscaping. One of the things to consider is that the native plants evolved in this area. So they don't need fertilizer to thrive here. They don't need additional watering to thrive here. And those inputs, taking away those inputs will reduce pressure on our environment, water quality issues, and of course the wildlife stuff. And the other, I think one of the most important things right now is that native plants provide a lot of service to threatened wildlife. And I'm talking about things like our native birds and native pollinators, which, believe it or not, help out a lot in the agricultural community around here as well. So, and the other thing is we get a lot of pushback in the landscape design world about, oh, native plants, they're ugly, you know, there's not a spot for them in my garden, but there's a native plant for every spot in the landscape. Native grasses, flowers, shrubs, and trees. So no excuse. When we talk about native plants, there's a lot of confusion. Like you have to be sure to select native plants that are endemic to our region. So a plant that would survive in Noyak isn't necessarily going to survive beachfront in Sagaponic. So you have to sort of take a look at your surroundings and work with the plant material that's thriving in your area to assure success. And then the other thing, a plant that's native to the Southwest, they will survive here, but they're not providing the wildlife services to the bugs and the birds that evolved here. They'll help pollinators because pollen is pollen and nectar is nectar. But a lot of times the plants that evolved in other areas flower at times when our local plants, when our local insects and birds don't really need that stuff. So local is local, and that's a good thing. And then there's a term that we use in the business called nativars, and that's an extrapolation of the term cultivar, which is a cultivar is a selection of a species of plants. So let's say there's let's say a bayberry, for instance, that we notice is very compact in its growth, or it fruits very heavily. Nurserymen will select those plants and watch their growth, and then if they sort of stay small over time or stay heavily fruitful over time, they'll give it a kooky name usually, and they'll propagate it for use in the business. So, you know, one of the things like bayberry, if you see it out in nature, it could be 12 feet tall. There might be some selections or nativars that stay 4 feet tall that we can easily integrate into a landscape without it getting out of scale. One of the best examples of that is Ilex verticillata, which also known as winterberry, that lives in the marshy areas around here. Because of its winter interest with the berries, the nurserymen have developed multiple nativars of that, everything from 18 inches high up to 6 feet high, that you can integrate into a landscape easily. And then also, I want, one of the things is back in the 80s, we were all sort of obsessed with exotic plants from China and Turkey and South America. But I think what we really need to do is get back to learning to appreciate our local natural beauty, because it's one of the reasons why we're all here. And it's the way to go for the future of the environment and the planet. So one of the things that I do when I'm not busy is I'm on the board of the Perfect Earth Project, which is, an organization that promotes chemical-free and nature-based landscape maintenance practices. And one of the initiatives we started about 2 years ago is called 2/3 for the Birds. So, gardening should be fun, right? And I'm not saying that gardening with native plants isn't fun, but you're not going to tell me I can't put my zinnias in the ground every year. So what we're doing in the landscape design world is to try to encourage people to plant 2/3 native plants, and then you get 1/3 to sort of play with, all that exotic stuff that we should be fun. So if you want to try the latest, greatest, whatever, you've got 1/3 of your plant palette to play with. And it's estimated that if we were able to get 2/3 native plants in our landscapes, that would be the tipping point where we could turn around some of the dramatic decline in pollinators and birds. So it sort of works the same way in the grocery store. I think that it's even lower there. If you get 17% of the population to start buying organic vegetables, there's a tipping point there where the cost will come down, and then it'll start to become cultural almost, where there will be like this landslide of people that kind of gravitate toward that. One of the things about 2/3 for the Birds is that as I mentioned, it helps turn around the native bird and insect loss, and it breaks up what we call food deserts. So migrating birds, migrating insects need these native plants to survive. When they're flying from Canada down to South America, they need stopping points. Just like the perfect example is the Canada goose, right? That used to fly from the north, fly down south. They don't fly in one night all the way down to where they're going. They stop along the way, and they rely on native food sources along the way. So one of the big problems is, especially in New York State, is that starts around Albany and all the way down to Long Island, it's basically a food desert for migrating birds and insects. So we need to start getting these pockets of native plants together. Big public projects are the best way to do it, like the park in Brooklyn. I forgot what it's called, Brooklyn Yards. That's a perfect example of the diversity of wildlife that is shown up in that park in the middle of Manhattan. Is kind of astounding. But even in our backyards, you'll notice that if you're able to introduce some native plant material, it goes a long way, and you'll see that they'll come and kind of add another layer to the garden of interest. So that's my spiel about native plants. I just wanted to just do a couple of discussions about general practices toward nature-based landscaping. One of our biggest, I'm going to call it problems right now, are manicured lawns, because of the amount of water that they take, the amount of chemical inputs for diseases, and the water soluble nitrogen that it takes to maintain a perfect bluegrass lawn. And it's all hitting our water issue. It's hitting the water, and it's eventually hits the ocean, and then we get the harmful algal blooms. You've heard about this a million times. So, we like cute little sayings in our business, but we're saying that wall-to-wall carpeting is out and area rugs are in. So when you're thinking about your landscape, how much lawn do you really need? Do you have young kids where you need a certain amount of space for soccer? Okay, that's the maximum lawn you really need. The rest of that could be given up to native shrubs that take up a lot of space, and they get big enough to the point where you don't have to weed around them. They don't need any water. They don't need any fertilization. So try to think less of the wall-to-wall and more of area rugs. water wisely. One of the biggest things is you don't want to be on that Suffolk County Water Authority list. It gets, I'm proud to say none of our clients were on that. We take care of some pretty big properties on the East End. But one of the things that almost every homeowner can do now is install a Wi-Fi controlled irrigation clock, because you could be in Europe on vacation, and as long as you have Wi-Fi and you hear that it's raining at home, you can do a 3-day rain delay from your phone on your controller. And it's kind of quote unquote dumbed down the irrigation clock, because I'm the first one to admit that the people who I work with in the company don't want me to touch the time clocks, because there's something about my brain that can't handle those dimensions of zones and time. So, but the apps that they have now to run the controllers are really simple. It shows you a picture of what the zone does and how long do you want it to run and when do you want it to run. And it was like, yes. And they're very inexpensive. They can be as little as $200 for a modest home. And one big thing I can't stress enough is to stop using water soluble fertilizers. If you don't take the clippings away from a lawn and leave them on the lawn, and by the way, they dry up in a half an hour and become crispy and just kind of fall in. That nitrogen that's in that clipping falls into your soil and eventually gets broken down into nitrogen that's available to the plant. So it's basically free fertilizer. The other thing is, and again, I'm going to beat the dead horse, but toxic chemicals, especially fungicides on lawns. Like fungicides are the most toxic group of chemicals that are used in the landscape industry. They're not good for us to walk on. They're not good for kids. They're not good for pets. And again, this sort of goes back to maybe accepting things the way they were in the 50s before all of these things were developed, that maybe our lawns aren't going to be perfect in August because they're not intended to grow here in August. They like cool weather. So just in closing, I want to say, like, I think where we need to go as a society is to think less about controlling nature and more about working with nature, and how it's going to simplify our lives, make our lives healthier, help the environment, help our water quality, and hopefully turn some of the bad news around.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I had a question.
Yes.
I heard, and I didn't read thoroughly about it, I kind of saw a headline, but about clover lawns being better than plain lawns. So I was wondering if you could.
Sure. I forgot to mention clover. So a pure clover lawn is a little difficult because clover is an interesting plant. And I almost think that like there's some universal clover controller up there somewhere that says, okay, we need you in this area right now. Clover it's a legume, which is in the bean family. So it's capable of taking gaseous nitrogen that's in the air around us all the time, taking it into the plant and storing it in its roots. And what happens with that nitrogen is when in the winter, most of the roots of plants sort of die back a little bit in the winter. That nitrogen is released into the soil in a form that plants can use. So clover in a lawn is almost essential because, again, it's free fertilizer from the air. And if you're in it kind of migrates in lawn. So we like it mixed with turf grasses rather than only clover. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed over the years that it sort of moves around and it sort of does this healing to areas of the soil that need the nitrogen and need the buildup. And then it kind of, the population sort of decreases in that area, but then you'll notice that it gets heavier in other areas. But the good thing about clover is that it coexists beautifully with turf grasses. So it's heavy in the spring because it germinates. I mean, it starts to grow much earlier than turf grasses do in the cool season. And a lot of people get turned off by that, but usually within 4 weeks, once the soil temperatures warm up, the clover sort of recedes and the turf grasses take over. So it's this beautiful coexistence that is a huge part of nature-based landscape practices. Yeah, and that's the other thing about a lawn, a nature-based maintenance on the lawn. if you fertilize a lawn in the spring, you're forcing it to grow at a time of year when it doesn't want to. Turf grasses won't start growing until the soil temperatures are around 55, 57 degrees. So that it'll grow if you fertilize it, but it sets up this situation where it's an unnatural growth pattern. It's soft, what we call soft growth, which is more susceptible to funguses, and it just starts this whole domino effect of problems. So it's really like June 15th, if you let a lawn kind of come up on its own, where it's really green and beautiful, because our springs are so cold that it just takes a while for the lawns to get up to speed. But if we can all develop a little patience with that, the result is incredible, because you get a more resilient turf, doesn't need as much irrigation, and it can kind of slide through this August period when it gets really hot and humid, better than a lawn that was pushed to grow too early. Like the Labor Day green lawn is a fallacy. And you probably remember this, Bill, growing up as a kid, right? All over Saginaw. And there were a lot of brown lawns in August.
Some
And if it
still
rained,
have
yeah.
that.
And if it rained, they greened up.
Okay.
But then by September 15th, everything was lush and green again. So I'm not saying we have to go back to those days, but we should be a little more tolerant.
Public projects, you had something to do with the green in East Hampton?
Yes, I've done, accidentally, I've done several public projects. One was a bioswale on the Village Green in East Hampton that was on, I think, in 2016. So,
It looks great.
it does.
Yeah.
That has really, it's worked. And we did another one on Methodist Lane
Ah,
that's functioning very well. I got a video of that. Was it on last Monday or something, where we had like 3 inches of rain in an hour? It was, I couldn't believe how much water was going through it. I thought for sure that all the plants were heading over to Hook Pond. But 2.5 hours later, it was still green and everything was standing up, so they were very successful. And I'm working now with the Lake Avalon Conservancy, doing bioswales and native plantings and public awareness projects.
that's great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Okay,
And
my
we're
Thank you.
happy to have you,
Thank you, John.
happy to have you presenting and working in Saginaw.
Yes.
Do great projects.
Yeah, I'm trying to spread the good word with the projects I'm working on too.
Cool.
Yeah, we're
Okay.
bringing people to natural lawns and all that, so.
That's fantastic.
But you talked about the clover. Our back lawn here, after we did the extension on here, was in pretty good shape.
Mhm.
But all the clovers came.
Nice, yes. Just overseed it in the spring, I mean, in the fall.
It's a healing.
It is. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Bye-bye, thank you. And I can also put this slide up on the website as well.
Oh, okay. Minutes, those are probably, nobody's had a chance to read them. I got through them, and the only things I would, you don't really need to correct was the auto spell changed the words a little bit, but it's still very understandable, so.
Or a couple of ones.
Oh, okay.
Around on the first
Yeah.
set.
Not a big deal. So we'll hold off on approving them.
Do you want to hold off on all of them, or?
Oh, I don't think anybody else has had a chance to read
I
it.
truthfully did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Even the July 12th ones, which I sent on the email yesterday. Okay, you did, that's fine, I'll just put them all on September.
Okay. Town police report. Always fun to try to go through that.
Can I just add a little thing to that when you're done? To the police center.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So I had a really nice discussion with one of our officers who was hiding off the road slightly and, trying near one of our active stop signs. And we were talking about cell phone reception. And then I went home and thought for a while, and Rhodey had brought up Sag Main got a booster for the cell phone reception because I'm assuming they did it because of the lifeguards and the amount of people down
Yes.
there.
My daughter told me so. that's how I
So,
found out.
what I'd like to do, with everybody's permission and positive thoughts, I came up with 2 ways of approaching this. Number one, I would like to talk with Rhodey, and I would talk with Optimum and find out how boosters are put on things. Do we put them on a couple poles at different corners? Find out how that's done and what would be the cost to the village. Number 2, I'd like to do, and this idea came back from my other life as a school administrator. But when I did several things in East Hampton School, particularly when I was assistant principal at John Marshall Elementary, I would ride around with the police once. And we would pinpoint corners where at dismissal, we could visually see, back then everybody rode bikes, you know, kids going certain routes, and then we would put traffic, our crossing guards sometimes would move, depending on where kids lived, to different locations. So in taking that idea, I thought with permission of everyone, and I'd like to ask Rhodey to talk to the chief that maybe we could set up a time period that I could ride, and the purpose of the ride would be for the officer to go to a variety of corners around town and pinpoint, so I get a list of where there's no cell phone reception.
Oh,
Because in some locations, there has to be some if we're boosting, not we, but they're boosting
Right.
at Sag Main. And I know on my property, if you stand in the front yard, you're better off than the backyard. So
Right.
I would like to ride with the police officer, find the spots, talk to Optimum and find out what would it cost to get these boosters put in a couple places to help the police, also to help our citizens if they call 911. And that would be an easier solution than trying to do a tower.
But would it be Optimum or would it be a Verizon or an AT&T?
I don't know, but that's why I think we'd have to talk to Park and Rex. What did
Well, I
they
would,
do?
yeah, definitely talk, ask them what they put down at the.
So, yeah, from the village's Southampton's issue, when we installed those 2, the carriers have coverage maps. So they already know where there's a desert, where there's a dead zone.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. They know.
Is that the-
And they make a business calculation based on the dead zone and then also the frequency of customers. So they really want to put a repeater in or a cell tower in an area that's really, doesn't really have a lot of subscribers, but that when they have complaints, then they know. So they identified that it was downtown Southampton Village, which we used the roof of Village Hall, and then that Cooper's Beach situation. So I would probably say, want to call Verizon, whoever everybody else uses, like T-Mobile or whoever it might be, AT&T, and see if they have any interest in putting in those mini cell towers, those green boxes they're dropping on posts.
Yeah,
ah,
they're not big from
They're not
what one of my
They're
daughters.
like
They're-
traffic control boxes, you
Right.
know, the traffic controls that they have with the lights, where they have the control box, they're about that size.
I
of
think
one.
Sag Harbor did the same thing too,
Yeah.
a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
So I can check with them to see.
All right, and I thought I'd be happy to work together. And I also would like to find the dead zones with the drive around, you know, and would take probably less than an hour to just hit a couple spots and the officer to say, oh, well, I can't write a ticket here because I can't get any backup, or I can't, you know, just do the thing. But it came to me with the bus route that I used to do, that you drove around with the police to establish, you know, safe places and whatever. So if you guys wouldn't mind, I'd like to pursue it. It just seems like we keep talking about cell phone
Right.
reception.
sure.
This would be, if there was a cost to us, a much cheaper option than dealing with a cell phone tower and the look of a cell phone tower.
Right.
Because remember, East Hampton started a cell phone tower and all the neighbors flipped out because it looks so bad. So these little boxes aren't gonna offend anyone, I don't.
Well, you find out how far that broadcasts. you
Yeah.
know, I
But if
know-
it helps in a couple key spots, it
Yeah,
really would be
right.
nice. The officer was saying that, you know, we were talking about the corner of Hedges Lane and Sag Main, and he said to me, he says, well, that's a really tough spot to get reception. And it occurred to me that we already have so many poles by Sag Store there, so maybe just one of those boxes right there would
Right.
boost that corner. So anyway, it was at least a brainstorm, and that's my police idea, to help them and to help our residents call 911 if they want to. So if everybody's with the idea,
Yes, great.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just think it might be a simpler
Yeah,
solution.
it might, yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. All right, now I'll be quiet.
Let's see, we got a quote from engineers on crack sealing, what is that, Waynesville Harbor Road?
Yes.
Yeah. Everything looks absorbent to me, but I don't know, kind of living in the Stone Age, I guess. But when I've been riding with Peterman, one of the times on that road, I said, well, what about the cracks? You know, I know in the past, I think what the town must have paved it at some time, and then after a few years, all the seams of the concrete joints show up in the next layer. And
We repaved that,
what?
we repaved, Waynesville Harbor Road. We
Yeah.
paved over concrete.
Oh, it was all concrete? I guess it's Ocean Road I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it was all concrete when we
Yep.
repaved it.
Yeah. And apparently, it seems like, I know some years ago, before I was on the board, they did crack seals on a few boroughs, and they seem to work out.
We did it on Sag Road
Yeah.
to prolong the
Right.
repaving of that road.
Yeah.
Prolong its life.
And I noticed that riding around other places, they do the same thing, so I assume it works.
I think we did crack seals too on
We did them on Sag Road.
Gibson and
Right,
Crestview
right.
Corner. There's
Exactly,
crack
yeah.
seals there
Yeah,
when you're riding.
yeah.
I don't remember doing that.
It was kind of like a
Big thing on
Jackson
Sag Road.
Pollock type of crack sealing method.
We
It's very
have
abstract.
to pay special for the artist,
Yeah.
artistic
We may have
effect.
done it when we did it over on Sag Road, I just don't recall that totally, but yeah, I mean, it just prolongs because it prevents the, you know, the moisture, the rain, or whatever.
Well, no, that's, if we can preserve what we've done.
Yeah, exactly. Do we want to vote to approve that? So that someday in the future, they'll, whenever the season is right, they'll do it. I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure of $17,950 or less to do crack sealing on Wainscott Harbor Road.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 10 Lane Road, in terms of, I mean, if I drive down that road during the daytime, there's always people walking or biking, or I love the woman with the baby carriage. She's going the right direction, you know, she's facing traffic, but boy, she didn't look very happy. Anyway, in terms of, the town seems to be dragging its feet about any kind of discussion at all about paving that. And I was thinking, why don't we just let it be known that we're going to pave at least half of it in the spring? And maybe that'll push them to come up and say, okay, well, we don't want to be left behind, or we don't want to be the bad guy, or because I know when I talked to somebody in Waynescott, they certainly wanted to see it paved. So just, I don't think we'll get
I
the
think,
engineering now, but just kind of throw it out there to try to shake things up a little bit.
yeah, to get them going, and we should also add to the check that we want to put a pedestrian lane
Oh,
in
yeah.
to assist their residents and ours.
Well, at least our side will have a pedestrian.
No, but I meant
Yeah,
people could walk across the
exactly,
street
yeah.
to assist their residents and ours, and
Right,
it shows
okay.
our proactiveness of, and it would really be helpful if there was a pedestrian lane there, because that road is so narrow.
Oh, yeah.
And you add the baby carriages or the people who are 2 and 3 abreast and have a parked vehicle in a random place, and oh my gosh, you can't
I
see.
wonder how well it would blend in if East Hampton chose not to do it, and we chose to do it. Do you think they could blend the 2 lanes in?
Right
Yes.
into Sag Harbor. where they did that trenching and stuff, they did half,
They did
half
half
the
the
road.
road.
Oh, yeah,
It's
And that's,
perfect.
that's what was getting me, because I'm going, well, that looks pretty good here.
Yeah.
Why
yeah,
can't we do it? And,
yeah,
you know, it seems like whoever did Rosemar did that. Yeah,
And if you recall, when we did Sag Main Street, it was done one side and then the other,
yeah.
so,
But we did both eventually.
yes,
I'm
that's true. but
concerned
they
that if
just
we do
varied-
our side,
No,
and
they
it doesn't blend, you know, you don't want
they,
a lip there going,
yeah.
you know.
no, they would blend it in, they would patch it up and make sure that.
Going to Sag Harbor, they've done a really nice job.
They did,
Yeah.
okay.
Totally right, and I think we're win-win on this idea if we do our side, and I think, even the residents on the other side of the road will be totally happy to be able to cross and have a safe place to walk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And, you know, sometimes you have to rattle a cage to get to the
Right.
spot. And it's just an unsafe road, so we should do it.
so however it is, we'll kind of let people, if you run into somebody from East Hampton, tell them, and I don't know, once Jim hears this, when he,
Well, Jim, as you know, as I told you today, Bill is in touch with the East Hampton Town on another issue. And so I will just let him know that he can inform Steve Lynch that we will be paving our half of Town Line Road in the spring of
that'd be good,
2024.
yeah.
And whether they jump on it or not, is, like you said,
yeah.
it's up to them.
Is Lynch up for reelection? How does that all
His
fall?
term is- I don't know.
Yeah, because the town board is, but.
I don't think he is this time.
Uh,
I'm not
I'll
sure what
ask-
his term is.
I know someone, his aunt, so I will try to find out. But that being said, I think this is a great idea, and I don't think we lose anything by trying to help people.
No,
Do you need a motion or no?
no,
No, it's just.
Not yet, just a
You'll
night.
do that in, probably in January. Do it starting in March.
Sag Bridge, many years ago in the 50s and 60s, before they put up a guardrail, there used to be a white locust post, and Pete Amelita, and I don't forget who the other guys were, used to go down there with a gravely and mow the thing at least 3, maybe 4 times a year. But back then it was kind of grass. Because it's been let go, they've got bamboo coming in from one area, they've got that mugwort, which is horrible stuff. So it grows a lot faster than the grass used to, and the town, Rhodey's been after them to mow it, because we've got a wedding coming up there on the 23rd of September. And maybe they're overwhelmed or whatever, and my thought is that in the next budget, we ought to plan on maybe getting a landscaper once a month during the summer to go in there and take care of it for us.
That's a good idea.
Pick up any garbage and keep it, you know, mow it down. And the town can come in and they can do it a couple times a year. I assume maybe, you think we're getting twice a year out of them maybe, or just once a year?
I would say maybe twice.
Yeah, and they
Yeah.
can always jump in there and do some too, but
We also need to maybe remind the town that the side the bamboo's coming from, we own where the
Right.
bridge lands on the other side. They really have to catch that before it keeps crawling like that, because don't they have horrible roots to even deal with?
yeah, well, if you cut them a couple times, they tend not to come back in that
Oh,
season,
okay.
but they will come back the next year.
Hmm.
Because I've got a neighbor, oh. with bamboo. You didn't.
Well, they didn't
you're-
plant them.
I know, they didn't, the other guy did.
Yeah,
They
didn't plant
We cut it a couple times a year, twice, usually takes care of it until the next year. What we do is we'll send out a request for proposals, is that what it's called? RFP,
Mhm.
and take bids on doing it. And I would think, you know, once a month for like 6 months, the growing ones. It would make it a lot better looking, and
It started in the spring,
yeah,
yeah,
Right.
definitely.
I will say the town has been a lot better about mowing the edges
Absolutely.
than ever before. I think
Yeah.
they're doing a great job. I've even had a few times guys walking along with weed whackers.
Really?
Cleaning it, cleaning along the parking.
And they're picking up all types of,
Yeah.
in those heavy rains, we've lost
We're
branches
certainly getting
by the
a lot more
cemetery and
service
stuff,
than
they're just
Right.
picking them
than
up,
we
the
were
big
back
branches.
under the other administrations.
No, I agree. I mean, I'm not critical of them, but
No,
I
I know.
part of it could be that when they used to use those other mowers and there wasn't a guardrail blocking their access, you could kind of get through it.
Yeah, yeah.
And now it's down to a weed eater. It takes a lot more time to walk behind mower. Okay, well, at some point, I don't know, Rhodey knows how that stuff works and we'll
That's a great
take
idea.
a whack at it.
Well, we put it in for the budget for next year.
Right,
So
we
it
need to
wouldn't
have
start
it.
until June 1
Yeah,
in the new budget. So we'll put that in.
right.
When we do the budget.
Well,
We need to get the pricing sometime before the
you
budget.
also wouldn't have a whole bunch of growth in May anyway. Our springs aren't as good as our falls usually, so we might almost slide by on that one.
Well, the first year it'll be in their regular schedule. On the 23rd, I have actually a wedding on the bridge for the centennial,
You do?
which is great. I don't know the people. Rhodey's had conversations with them, but that's a fun thing.
Catherine
Yeah.
Schillinger, I think the last name is. But yes.
It's nice.
From someone that lives in Sag or just someone heard about
I'm not sure where she lives, to be honest with you, Elise.
it? Okay, just curious.
I would assume that she is because the memo or letter from the mayor that was
Right.
sent out, she
Oh, right,
responded
only
to
when.
that.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
yes, they do, somewhere, but I'm just not sure where.
It's like a destination wedding.
So, in
Now, what
light
do we
of
do?
that,
Close the road down for the?
yeah, so, in light of that,
100th birthday party.
we've been chatting about this for a year now. So I need to pin down a time. I need to know exactly what time you want me to have and for how long you want me to have the bridge closed down, because I have to get that in the works.
11 till 2?
So 11 till 2,
Yeah.
you want 3 hours? 1, 2, 3, that's 3 hours. 1, 2, 3.
You have any idea how many people were coming?
No?
Yeah.
I told you I would put a lot into a bill and I never got anything out of it. So anyway, right now we have the wedding. What time do you want to do that? I mean,
No.
my thought was if you wanted to do it for 2 hours from 11 to 1, you can schedule the wedding to be at 12 if you
Yeah.
wanted.
Well,
And then, that's, the ceremony itself is gonna take all of 5 minutes. 'Cause
Okay.
She told me she wanted the short version, so that's all she wants.
yeah.
So that ceremony would be,
2 hours,
That
that's fine with me.
so I know you'd like to sing a song or two, so did
Well,
Lee Foster.
So why don't you go an hour each way beyond? I mean, there is some joy in the fact that the bridge could be closed a little longer, right?
Sure.
For the day. I'm looking at
Less
her.
traffic,
Unless you're planning to
Remember
use
how
it.
it was planned, I mean, it was closed for the whole season when they were repairing it.
I know, right? Took me half the season to remember.
I know,
The
I
thing
know.
is
It's like turning-
Get to your house and
Obviously, I know for a fact that the bride and the wedding party, there will be guests to that wedding.
Right.
So I know there will be people coming just for the wedding. But as far as, so after the wedding is performed, all those people are gonna leave. And then is there gonna be anybody down there or what's going on for the reason to have it closed for another hour? So are there any activities that,
At one time, somebody was going to do something, and I've never heard another word about it. And so that's that. I was going to see if Ann Sanford, being a descendant of the original builder of the bridge, to get her to say a few words. I was going to say some kind of,
okay,
how long my speeches are. 4
So-
sentences.
all right, so let's think about this, Bill, because I mean, only
Okay,
because
that's
the
20
bride,
minutes.
only because the bride needs to pin down a time.
Yeah.
Also,
The weddings are new.
so as far as an agenda,
Right,
so if you,
Noon
did
on
you
the
want to,
23rd?
yeah.
did you want to do the wedding first, or did you want to
Do the
speak
wedding.
about the
Wedding
bridge?
first.
Did you want to speak about the bridge and then have Ann do a little thing and then do the ceremony? Or did you just want to dive into the ceremony?
If you have a suggestion, I'm open to suggestions.
All right, so fine, we'll chat about it. I'll have the bridge closed from 11 to 1, so that's 2 hours.
Yep.
Oh, well, make Marilyn happy and make it swim.
But if we do
I'm
it for
joking.
3 hours, which I don't have, a problem, we can do it for 6 if you want, but
What do you do if they're crabbing on the bridge?
Oh,
move it over. We don't want any crabs in
Natural
the
look,
way.
you know?
And then the other thing is, I thought, do you want me to get like the bunting flags, and put some flags on it? so
I
it's
don't
pretty?
think we'd have to do that.
You don't need all that.
Yeah,
But it would
Town,
look
the town
cute.
showmobile.
After
Well,
you-
Brian, I was ready. If you wanna have a little band, if you wanted to have a food trucks down there, if you wanted to have a tent, I was ready to do all that, Bill, but if you wanna keep it quite simple, then there we go. I'll just keep it simple. I could get a band down there to play.
A
around.
band?
Band.
a band?
Yes, yes. High school bands
That's what I'm saying, Brian.
are more than willing, or they're small club groups, like jazz bands, the smaller club groups and stuff, sometimes are more than willing to do jobs like that.
That would be up to the.
Yeah, right.
No, Bill,
Alright.
no, this is not the Brian Grooms affair, this is our affair, they just happen to be part of it. So, that's why I'm asking you, what do you want down there? Right now, it's very simple, which is fine, that's the way you want to go, I don't have a problem
Loudspeakers
with
for
it.
Maryland to sing.
Well, that's the other thing, if you need a speaker system, I can get one of those, you just gotta let me know what you wanna do.
Yeah, keep it simple. If somebody wants to run with it, fine, but I'm not.
No, that's not, we're beyond that right now, Bill. So.
Yeah,
We are
okay.
down to the,
Just down to a wedding and a
11th hour.
couple of dresses and
couple of dresses.
a dress.
Our dresses.
A dress. I'm not
Because,
gonna
you know,
wear a dress.
I did that with Sag Harbor on their 350th anniversary. I did a parade, I did a whole big shenanigans, and I'll show you the pictures when I dressed, I had all my office dressed in, period, we put them on so that's what I'm saying. You want it simple? I don't have a problem with that. If you want more, I can do that as well.
You wanna do that? Take
I
on more
am-
work?
Just saying that if you want things other than just the wedding and closing it down for 2 hours, you have to let me know now. Right now, that's what we're gonna do, and all I needed to do was to pin down that time. So I'm doing it, I'm gonna have the highway and the police close the bridge from 11 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon. And we also have to let the radio know that that road's gonna be closed.
Hmm.
So that in itself is, like a notification to the different areas. I've already talked to the bride, she's already on, I just had to tell her a time. So right now, you're gonna do the ceremony at 12 p.m. So have you spoken to Ann, or do you want me to
No,
speak with
I
her?
haven't, but,
Okay. Do you wanna contact her?
go ahead. I'm gonna be out of town for 2 weeks. so-
Okay, so I'll contact
Yeah.
Ann and let her know that you would like her to have a little, give a little history on the bridge. I will also send out an email with this little itinerary to all of the village residents, inviting them to be a part of it. And,
Okay. I'm not an entertainer, so it's just,
that's okay.
it's not my wheelhouse.
Do
Why
we have
not?
a budget if I can get the bunting wholesale flags?
Yeah, I mean, I can order them off of Amazon too.
We should notify the fire department too.
That's what I'm saying, all of these entities need to be notified. What we do is we notify dispatch. If I notify the police, they notify dispatch that you're gonna have to route around. It's the same thing when they close the roads down to the runs and everything like that.
Oh, yeah, that's
Okay. So that's what we'll do. I think we should set flags up on the bridge.
I would be happy to help with that, but I feel they should go up the week before, and the reason being is that becomes advertising right off the bat.
I can also have a banner made up.
You can do that?
We haven't got a banner made up.
say 100th anniversary.
Anniversary celebration.
So I will stop by and talk to you about
And
bunting.
Staples does that.
Yes, Staples does the banners. I know
Okay.
that from doing
So
other
we do
stuff.
flags and banners. All right.
And I'll be
See,
happy to
you
put
gotta
them
plan
up the
your
week
bill.
before, but not the week. I can't.
Now,
do it
here's
the
a
week
little problem.
No, I was gonna go down tomorrow morning
I'm
and try
gonna
to
be
vision.
away the whole week before because that is the week that I have to go out to NICON. Doesn't mean we can't put it together.
Oh, no, well, that's, I'm actually, I was gonna put the flags up before, but let me just go I have to visually
Yep.
see, and then I'll make my husband stop, because he's good on instruct, and I'll be happy to help with the flag putting up, but put them up before here. Yeah, well, exactly. And
Okay, we got a plan.
I'll pick anybody up. We're
Thank you
gonna put
very
those
much.
flags up. It takes 2 seconds. I mean,
Okay, do it.
I hang them on my house every season,
Oh,
so.
And it looks lovely.
Alrighty, got it.
assembly permits.
I did, I spoke with Carrie today, just, because she was gonna be here. Now, the questions on the Welby wedding were the parking. She had some questions on the parking and the garbage removal or the placement of the, what we thought was the dumpster, but it's actually is a tipster. And they're the garbage cans that tip. So they will be placed in the driveway. So there's not gonna be a dumpster placed there. As far as the parking, she was opposed to the parking on Parsonage Road, which I was as well. She was also opposed to the overflow parking up on the west side of Sag, Main Street, which was right across from her farm stand. I spoke with Charlie McGardle, and the area that they have cleared for the parking should be plenty of space
Oh, in the property.
for their
Okay.
30 to 35 cars or 20 to 25 cars that they are anticipating. So Charlie really doesn't see any need for an overflow, but he agreed that if there is, they'll park over on Sagaponic Road. However, he also said that the farm stand will be closed by the time they would need that overflow.
Right.
But I said so we agreed to do it over on Sagaponic Road. And the buses that they're bringing in, some of the guests, those buses don't stay, they just drop off and then Charlie directs them over to like the parking lot over at Kmart. Stay there, and then when they're ready for the guests to pick up the guests, they radio them and then they come and pick them up. So she was fine with all of that.
So make a motion to approve that function.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then the second one is a new one, I just received that yesterday. It is a wedding that is being hosted, or I don't know if that's the correct term, but at the Foster Farm on
Oh,
Sag Main
I
Street.
got in line behind her when she did the posting.
Yeah.
So was Alice, by the way.
So,
She sent
The-
13 or 14
Yeah.
registered letters out.
yes, she had to, because that's what our code says.
Yeah, I know.
It is for friends of hers, Eric is the owner, restaurant, I believe, so their wedding,
Yeah.
it's a rather large affair, 400 people, with 50 attendees, the attendees for the event, event attendees, I guess. So the parking, they are proposing to put on the verge in front of the field. Now, they have used that area in the past for other events they've had there, the field of power or whatever it's
They
called.
have that big farm
That's what I'm talking about, Bill.
dinner,
They've had
yeah,
that, yeah, and the dinners, they've had those big dinners there.
right.
They've used that area. I don't think there's been an issue, I haven't heard that there was an issue with that, using that area for the parking. People pull for parking, companies that's doing with the valet parking,
Yeah.
so. They also have proposed, on-site parking, so it's probably for the vendors and things of that nature. And maybe like the handicap that need to get closer. So, and they have tend to have in
When
your
is that?
packet, September 9th.
It's less than a month away and 400 people were invited. Wow, and we just. Woo.
She contacted me about in June. And I told her that she had to get it in and she's working on it. And yesterday I said, this is the only opportunity you have to get it in for tomorrow's meeting. And so there you go. there it is.
They got plenty of real estate to host it.
I was just thinking the
Yeah,
same thing.
Yeah.
well, places, it can be park foreign people, but God bless them.
Yeah,
That's a huge event. Wow.
I'll make a motion to approve that event.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Porta johns. Anybody see the one at Peters Pond?
Yes, thank you for
Yes.
your,
I have a suggestion for that.
You
I
what?
think we need to either paint or cut a half moon on it.
that's what I
Oh.
thought. Oh, Bill, that's brilliant.
Facing, facing from Daniels Lane, so you can see the half moon.
And the next person that goes
I haven't
somewhere,
seen
we need
anybody
to hang a
stop it.
buoy off it, or a
Oh,
couple.
that's all right. Yeah,
It needs character.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't seen anybody stopped yet, but I'm sure, I mean, I'm not
Probably from. the
watching
beach.
it.
You're not hanging out watching?
I do have to have, because under the IMA town, we have to put a sign on there that says that we are maintaining this. So I have ordered those signs. They
Oh,
should be in
okay.
next week. So you'll see a sign that faces, I'm gonna put it so it faces Daniels Lane. I thought
Okay.
the same thing, Bill.
Yeah.
It looks lovely, but who's gonna know that it's a portage on?
Yeah, yeah,
So maybe I didn't put this portage on is, but this facility is maintained by the village of Sagaponic. So perhaps with that sign, then people will say, oh, facility.
and then I thought of maybe a bushel basket of corn cobs.
Stop.
Oh, and on Halloween,
Sure, a lot
we
of
can
info.
walk up the
Walk
side.
And then the other thing that Bill actually, and I talked about before, was to have it painted, to have like
A mural.
a mural put on it.
You did cool.
I
It is so
I
plain.
would bet by the end of the summer, there's gonna be a big.
And to avoid that, that's what Bill was saying, is that to avoid somebody looking at this as a nice clean slate that I can put graffiti on,
Mhm.
he asked or suggested that maybe we get a mural painted on it. My niece is an art teacher in Sag Harbor, so I was gonna ask her if her students, which when I saw her last night, I completely got there, Bill.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
they would be
if it
willing
was a
to.
farm scene, something that,
Yeah,
yeah.
that would be good.
yeah.
Farm scene
I
with
mean,
a little moon.
My son John could get a couple of his buddies from the Bronx to come out.
They do
Might
some
not
good-
be
some of those are
pertinent.
good, some great
Some of
stuff.
those are
A
incredible.
little urban art there.
Yeah, urban art, some of those people are so talented.
Yeah.
That's a great idea. We just need to jazz it up a little, and I think it's gonna be,
Yes.
well, it's funny, he thought of the moon, I wanted to hang buoys, to make it look kind of, I don't know, rustic, and
Yeah, no, the buoys, I mean, that's really.
A little nautical scene.
Oh, yeah.
it really has to look
absolutely.
nautical, and,
Yeah.
and I love the half moon, and the sign, is a great idea, and I understand that was part of the IMA, but it's getting there. It's funny because, I saw it one day heading down the road, and then like a couple days later, it looked different, and I had to stop. I was like, what happened? And you had put the siding around it.
Oh.
In other words, it was pinkish
Okay.
before that, or whatever color units in there,
Right.
and then it changed.
It's pinkish.
The unit, the exterior, the units, and I think sometimes they change the whole unit
I
out.
didn't see it until Bill.
Cause the one on his road changed colors.
But because we asked them to, because they originally put a blue one out there.
Yeah,
We wanted the green one. to
Oh, I
be in.
assumed that had something to do with servicing why the colors
No.
changed.
No, we asked them.
That they just would jack it and put down a clean one.
Yeah, I don't believe they take the whole thing out, I think they just clean it.
so the follow-up question is Sag Bridge. If you, there's a 12-foot tall growth of lines and whatever the heck it is down there. And if you look directly south of the sign that says no parking beyond this point, it can be cut out and put the same thing there. So the crowds that use the bridge at times have some place other than the bushes to relieve themselves. So I get silence. Anyway, I mean, I go by Saturday evening or Sunday evening, Those seem to be predominantly Hispanics. Fishing, there's families, children, women. Other times, trying to think, was it last night I went down and it was a whole mix of different, you know, cultural groups, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah, and what were they doing? I saw a bunch of cars in there, but I didn't see any people anywhere.
Yeah, they
Was
were
there
kind of
around
low down, I don't know if they were crabbing or fishing,
Oh,
There was
because I
traffic
looked
on
on
the
both
other
sides, I
way, so
didn't
I
see
couldn't-
anybody. Usually you
I
see them.
didn't stop, you know, but
Yeah.
I think they were like sitting on the edge
Oh, maybe,
doing
okay.
stuff, you know, whether they're crabbing or fishing, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
We still have a paddleboard company that drops all their stuff by. Everybody loads on and they paddle to Sag Main, and then the company is parked there and picks it up. And they took the name off their truck, so I can't tell you who they are.
Right,
But basically, it's a stop and a start thing.
right.
Oh, well, maybe that's, I don't know.
And the group, well, they're not called the Group for the South Fork. They have another name. They
Right,
merged.
I know what you mean, they do.
East End, yeah.
Right.
I think they do a moonlit, not paddle, canoe or kayak or something.
Yeah, I forget.
And they park on the white sand.
Yep. I used
Um,
to ask for permission, but they don't.
Yeah, I think they just do it out of habit, but they've always done it once a
Right.
summer.
Anyway, it's a place, I mean, that was my original first shot, and that was shot down, because you didn't know what it looked like, now you know what it'll look like. So, and we can paint that one too, and it'll disappear and provide people with a little public relief.
Well, I'll go look at the one. I haven't seen Daniel's Lane.
And just imagine what you could do painting it up, doing some artwork on it. All right, well, we'll just discuss it again at the next meeting.
I will say, the one at Peters Pond. It's not attractive, but it came out.
You don't know what it is when you drive by.
Yeah.
Toll booth. That might be an idea.
Yeah.
Get somebody down
Toll
there.
booth on Ridge Lane.
I always thought we needed a toll booth on the bridge.
I wouldn't mind closing the bridge and having a
One way,
toll booth.
One way out. One way out.
Exactly.
All right, the rest of this, I think, is financial.
Yeah,
Financial
yeah,
and
yeah.
then reports.
And then they can only stay for a half hour.
Wait, did our reports go away? No way. I was gonna give you the zoning.
Let's see, do you want to do the money next?
Yes.
Okay.
It's on your agenda next.
Do I have resolutions I have to read, or can I
No,
just,
You just
whatever?
wanna make a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve an expenditure from the general fund of $59,589.71. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to expend from the tree fund the amount of $270. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion to expend from planning trust and agency $3,763.01. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And make a motion to expend from the capital highway fund the amount of $1,900. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, zoning board, they approved,
They had a 12-minute meeting. It
yeah,
was just one of the, both previous month's applications were adopted. The first one is 53 Hedges Lane to help people locate it. It was Michael Johnson's old house. And the house is 36.6 feet, 36.6 feet from the road, and it's required to be 60 feet. And that happens all the time with historic structures in zoning. And then it was encouraged by our Architecture and Historic Review Board to approve it. And so that was adopted,
So what were they approved,
not moving the house,
Not, oh,
that the historic house stays where it is. Then 199 Wainscott Harbor Road was also approved, adopted, and that was 38.2 feet from the road, currently the house. And I believe that was Angela Ross's old house, if I'm not mistaken. She's deceased now, and the code requires 60 feet again. And they are adding a conservative addition onto the house. And oddly enough, it lessens the degree of non-conformity, the addition, in addition to allowing the house to stay, the original house where it was. Did I describe that correctly?
Yeah.
Non-conformity. So anyway, 12 of those and were adopted and very quick. And we frequently get the distance from the road on historic houses or older houses. And actually on Wainscott Harbor Road, there has been several houses over the years that whole road was built on the right side as you're heading down at Montauk Highway, closer to the road than the left side. Don't ask me who built it, but it was. It's come up before. So anyway, that's that. And
They wanted short driveways.
yeah, that probably was it, because they would have been really short.
They're wasting their property on both.
Right.
Old houses.
And there would be no gates.
What good's a wall?
Right, right.
Because the gates are now being encouraged to be over 40 feet back when the house is at 36. You can't put the gate behind the house.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I am done, thank you.
That's about it, right? Anything else we missed?
on the village green, the tree is gone.
Mhm.
What are we doing with that?
So I have to send out an RFP because we have that tree, I think 3 other trees,
Okay,
to get that.
'cause
And
my
it-
son
that
was
was
my son was gonna get one from
Well,
his nursery. but-
well, I'm gonna send it to his nursery, so I can
Yeah,
get
to
his
Whitmore, yeah.
information. Is that Whitmore?
Whitmore, yeah.
Oh,
He saw it, he noticed the tree was gone the other day, he asked me about it.
and what kind of tree was it again, Bill?
Oh,
Norway
gosh.
spruce,
I'm sorry, what kind?
What was it?
Norway spruce.
No.
And it won't get sick.
We're hoping.
Well, unless, wasn't that the option that doesn't get whatever?
It's amazing, you know, I talked to the
They adapt, maybe.
entomologist about the beech leaf disease and then about the southern pine beetle, which is killing the pitch pines.
Right.
And I wasn't aware, he said that those beetles will also attack Norway spruce and white pine. And he went through this list of stuff and I'm like,
So just about everything, huh?
we're gonna have all lawn and no trees if where the things are going, you know,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah.
you
They're
get the
terrible,
beech
they're
trees going, and-
devastating.
but he said they don't attack them first, so.
Okay.
You know, with the, if you read the, what is it, Psychoponic Then and Now,
Mhm.
and they mentioned in it, Bud and Alvin planting that tree originally,
Mhm.
and they planted a 6-foot tree.
Yeah, my father planted it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the original
Did they
one.
use a shovel?
They planted it in
It's been
memory
planted
of one
twice.
Yeah,
Bud
right,
and Alvin's father.
right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, after
And
he
I-
passed, they planted that tree, but that was the first one.
That's the first one,
That's
this
the
is,
first one, this is this
this
was
is the second.
the second one we just
Yeah.
took out.
I was just kind of questioning why maybe we don't need such a damn big tree to start.
Yeah, yeah,
Because if you had a 6-foot tree like they did before, kids could decorate it for
Right.
the first couple of
Well,
years.
yeah,
Um, I
you know?
brought some kids with me when Lee and I did it, I brought my grandkids,
Yeah,
and a 6-foot ladder, because I wasn't really willing to go higher, and
right,
with the cut tree we put in front of it this
Oh,
past
okay.
year,
yeah,
because we couldn't light the bigger one, and that was very reasonable to light.
right.
And my daughter had a really interesting idea, well, because she obviously drove the kids there. She said, in the early part, you could, because Lee was saying, the cut trees were coming from Mrs. Albright's property, part of the culling process
Oh.
for the tree farm. And Lee said we probably could get another one next year, and my daughter said, well, you could have your new tree that's 6 feet and 2 smaller 4 or 5 foot, cut trees on either side, we have enough lights. And do that until it gets a little bigger, so it's more of a statement than a tiny 6-foot tree. You know, you could make an arrangement, because the cut trees don't cost anything. Lee could easily get them.
Right.
So, and my husband's staff thought it was the best activity they had in the whole world to pull up there and make a stand for it. They were like, whoa, this is a great job. So,
So we're going for a 6 foot?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, if that's,
say 6
I mean,
to
it doesn't
7.
look like much, but
Yeah,
then again,
but
in
I mean,
terms
you
of the
know, what's
spirit of
the-
what used to be
Yeah, the
done.
purpose is to
Yeah.
put a little something on the green
Yeah.
around the holiday.
And if you don't mind, Lee and I
think
can
Matt had
come
said
up
there
with some
was
small ones on either
10
side.
to 12-foot tree.
Yeah.
That's what he
Yeah,
figured we might want there, but we can go, he's got them every.
Well, if I do it 6 to 8.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now it's 6
Right.
to 8. Okay.
And Lee and I will talk again about putting smaller ones on either side for the earlier years, just to kind of fill the space a little.
sure.
Now that we have power, we're like cruising, this is awesome.
Now we gotta cover the power grid.
Right.
Power box.
Yeah, the power box, that's true. Well, assumingly, the tree would go in front of it,
Yeah,
but not too close.
No, because they can't put it in the same spot the other tree was taking it, so it'll be further. from the gas.
And I had talked to Gretchen and Christian, and they also, and Lee were interested in the ceremony of the last Friday before Christmas singing ceremony with refreshments, and was the village sponsoring that. And I said, well, I didn't know about that. We were just happy to get the tree lit. But
The moon show.
yeah, what we could do is ask them to do that part.
But I don't know what there is to sponsor. mean,
I guess
we're
they
like the
used to
tree.
bring
We did it.
refreshment.
we did it here,
One year we did it.
Well, we
here,
did
yeah.
it in, yeah, but the tradition was to have
Originally,
it down
people
there
sang.
in the people's houses, right?
Right, they went to
Wasn't that-
people's houses.
Somebody opened their house. for them to
Oh,
use
yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff.
And one year Madu did, well, maybe Madu would be willing to do that then.
It's right there close, I mean,
Yeah.
we can do it here.
So,
we did in the past.
all right, well, I'll see what I can, between Christian and,
And it's good to get a date so
Right.
that I can send out the emails to
Right.
all of the residents to
right.
let them know, because
Madu would be a
Always
good
update
option,
that
because it
with-
takes it off our facility
Yeah.
worries.
Yeah.
You know, and they're always willing to, they do an
Showcase.
Easter egg hunt,
Yeah.
they do other stuff, they do, so why
and
not?
it's closer, you might get more people attending if you just have to go there instead of all the way, get a car and drive out here.
I will grab Alejandro and have a little chat, and we'll get a date on that. I like working on the Christmas tree, because nobody's grumpy about it ever. It's an easy one.
Right.
It's cheerful.
Everyone.
So I make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.
You're going away, Bill?
Yeah, I go up to New Hampshire and